Good afternoon and welcome to NECEC's Back to Work Challenge Award celebration. I'm Peter Rothstein, president of NECEC, and I am thrilled that so many NECEC members, sponsors, partners, friends, and collaborators are here able to join us today for this virtual celebration. You know, in a normal year, we'd be meeting in person at our annual Green Tie Gala around this time to celebrate the progress of the past year and the successes in our industry. But 2020 has been anything but a normal year. We're living through several global crises that have impacted every part of how we live and work. First and foremost, a public health crisis that has transformed all of our lives and will continue to impact our communities and businesses well into 2021. Second, an economic crisis that has forced millions of Americans to file for unemployment since mid-March has disrupted the global supply chain and delayed permitting and construction in our sector and across many others. Third, there's been a reckoning with racial injustice that has rightfully pushed each of us to examine issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity in our world. And fourth, a climate crisis that has gained national attention this year as wildfires have burned through California, storms flooded the Gulf Coast, and while presidential debates have raised climate and clean energy issues to the national stage. And yet, in spite of these crises, there are so many positive lessons to be learned from this year. For the first time in more than a decade, climate change and clean energy are receiving the public and media attention they deserve. The majority of Americans now believe the government should do more to reduce the threats of climate change. And we saw climate change become a central issue among voters in last week's election. Northeast states continue to lead the way with aggressive targets for the next decade, including Maine's 80% renewable energy standard target, New York's target of 100% zero emission electricity by 2040, and Rhode Island's pledge for 100% renewable electricity by 2030. Looking ahead to the decade before us, we see great potential as the federal government may rejoin the states, cities, and private industry by making serious investments in clean energy projects, resources, and infrastructure. We have much to look forward to, and there's also much work to be done. This year, we're going to be celebrating the meaningful work happening across our sector to address environmental injustice, which has long stood in the way of a truly just transition to a clean economy. Our region is embracing the idea that climate change and racial injustice are intertwined. And we are seeing a stronger focus on building a clean energy future that benefits all communities equally, including historically underserved populations that have traditionally lived, worked, and played closest to sources of pollution. While there's work to do to ensure the clean energy transition happens equitably, our sector is forging important connections with environmental justice networks that will lay the groundwork for progress to come. And the clean energy sector is on a pathway to recovery. Across our industry, companies are changing business practices, developing health and safety guidelines, employing new technologies, engaging with their communities to adapt to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and thrive despite many challenges. When we launched the Clean Energy Back to Work Challenge to celebrate this hard work, we've been so impressed since we launched this in June with the work of our companies and with the nominations that we've received, 22 in total, from which we selected 12 finalists who've implemented innovative and inspiring back to work projects. I want to thank every company that's participated in this challenge. And we're looking forward to this evening and announcing our winners later on in the program. So before we move on to the awards program, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made this event possible. First, our premier sponsor, Eversource Energy. Thank you very, very much, Eversource. And our category sponsors, Daymark Energy Advisors, E for the Future, the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, NECEC Investment Managers, and Snyder Electric. And our contributing sponsors, Ann Barrick, Barry Dunn, NG, Borrego Solar, and Greenberg Traurig, and our media partner, Canaccord Genuity. Thank you all very much. And with us from our premier sponsor, Eversource Energy, is Jim Hunt, Senior Vice President for Regulatory Affairs and Chief Communications Officer. We're really grateful, Jim, for your leadership and friendship and the sponsorship of this challenge. and it's great to have you and many of your colleagues here with us tonight. We'd love to give you the stage to take a moment and share some remarks with our members and guests. It's over to you, Jim.
Great. Well, thank you, Peter. You mentioned the Green Tie Gala. I want you to know that I broke out my green tie for you and our other board members on the Clean Energy Council. It's great to be with you and everyone here. Eversource is pleased to partner with the Northeast Clean Energy Council in our Back to Work Challenge and Awards. Those of us in the clean energy space know the meaning of resilience. We innovate new technologies and advance new ideas, and this always requires commitment, drive, and dedication, even during the best of times. Well, as you mentioned, 2020 has been a challenging year to say the least, with the COVID pandemic wreaking havoc in our economy, in our communities, and advancing our clean energy agenda. For many, even Eversource, financing and permitting reviews have been impacted. For many of our innovative companies, technology development and business orders have slowed. And the in-person meetings so important to the innovation process and the growth of the clean energy ecosystem have been forced into a virtual footing. In times like these, resilience and dedication really do take on new importance. We so appreciate the work of the Clean Energy Council now more than ever, as it supports our members and brings us together to advance a new energy future. Eversource is working to be that catalyst for clean energy, helping the transformation take place right here in the Northeast. Our offshore wind joint venture with Ørsted ranks as North America's largest, with lease areas that will allow us to build 4,000 megawatts of carbon-free energy just off the coast of New England. We're also investing in utility-scale energy storage projects, providing some financial support for electric vehicle transformation through our EV Make Ready program. We're operating a network of solar energy facilities throughout eastern and western Massachusetts, and we continue to be, along with our partners here in Massachusetts, the #1 energy efficiency provider in the US. Earlier this year, just before the pandemic broke out, Eversource announced an industry-leading goal to be carbon neutral by 2030 for our own operations. We believe it's important to lead by example and prove our commitment to a clean energy future. We recognize the importance of clean energy to our customers, who frankly demand and expect it, to our states, who have laid out ambitious goals for the reduction of carbon emissions, and to the economy of New England and the Northeast, the home of innovation and entrepreneurship. On behalf of Eversource, I congratulate today's award winners and finalists. Also, I thank everyone here tonight for the role that you play and the work that you do to support a cleaner energy future. Here's to another year of resilience and to future successes. On that note, I'll turn it back to you, Peter, to kick off your discussion with Governor Patrick. Peter?
Thank you, Jim. And my appreciation to you and to Eversource for your support and collaboration throughout the year, and especially around this Clean Energy Back to Work Challenge. Thank you very much. So now I'd like to turn to our keynote conversation. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to connect with former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick. We talked about the role that he played in growing the clean energy economy while in office and his vision for a just transition to a clean energy future. Governor Patrick has long been a champion of our sector and played a pivotal role in positioning our region as a world-class clean energy hub. I'm excited to share this recording of that conversation now.
It's really nice to see you, Peter. Thanks for inviting me.
Great to have you here as well. And I look forward to this conversation. It's very timely for a whole host of reasons. You've really been one of the original both of those being born the same several months in the fall of 2006. And so as we're celebrating today with the Clean Energy Back to Work Challenge award celebration, I thought it would also be really great for you and I to take a little bit of time here at the beginning, just to sort of, I wouldn't call it reminiscing, but think back to how clean energy got started, and your tutelage and champion efforts that took place coming out of your administration starting in 2006. Maybe the place to start, maybe share a little bit about your first run for governor. What was it that drew you to run for governor, and what was it that put clean energy front and center as one of the priorities in your administration?
Well, Peter, again, thank you for inviting me. And speaking of my tutelage, you, along with Ian Bowles, Phil Giudici, David Cash, I had some amazing tutors, extraordinary leaders, well ahead of their time and still on the cutting edge in thinking about how we move to a carbon-free future. I think for me, the connection between my interest in this field and my running for governor is actually quite direct. The biggest thing I felt we'd been missing in our politics in America, and I saw it in my business life, was this the failure to focus on the long term. All this short-term, quarter-to-quarter, election cycle to election cycle kind of thinking and decision-making, I think was and is sometimes at the expense of our long-term interests. And if you think about the kinds of quarter-to-quarter decisions that are often made in business, they add up to the climate crisis we're facing right now. You know, how much easier it is to use energy rather than save it and be more efficiency. How much easier it is to not to scrub emissions or invest in what it takes to reduce emissions. How much easier it is, frankly, to dispose of all kinds of waste rather than scrubbing them and disposing of them differently or recycling them where we can. And we are compelled now to think about really to treat the climate as the crisis it is because of a whole series of short-term decisions. So I ran in the hope of trying to bring a different way of governing, to really try to demonstrate as a candidate and as an office holder that you could run on the strength of and lead on the strength of convictions and not just, poll tested messages and all that sort of thing. And that you could really govern for the next generation, not just the next, news cycle. And so I think of clean energy very much as in line with that. And as I said earlier, I was fortunate to have you and other terrific tutors to show us how to make that real.
Well, and it's come a long way since then, and I think that's, we've had 14 years since the founding of NECEC and since the launch of your first term, and so we're getting close to a generation now of impact. And even more so, we start thinking about how to build on what's happened already, which has really been about a young industry and a young sector emerging in the economy. It's about, I think, fundamental policies, which started in your administration with the Green Jobs Act, the Green Communities Act, the Global Warming Solutions Act. That trio of pieces of legislation really set a foundation that we've continued to evolve and build on and amend over time.
I'm really, really proud of that legislation, Peter, if I may interrupt you. And
absolutely.
I want to give due props to the legislature who stepped up at our request and moved those pieces of legislation. I will say that that experience was part of my my own learning curve, that though we, I think, got something like 95% of what we wanted from the legislature, rarely did we get it when or in the form we had asked for. but we got really useful tools to use, and we collaborated with the council and with the private sector, both here in Massachusetts and beyond. And I'm really proud of the fact that we set these really ambitious goals. I remember talking to Ian and his team about what were reasonable goals and then what were ambitious goals. And I said, what I prefer are the ambitious ones. And he came, this is on emissions reductions. And I remember him and the team coming with ambitious goals. And I said, well, now let's just kick those up a notch more. And lo and behold, we exceeded those goals well before the deadline and set a whole other set of ambitious goals, which I think have been exceeded since. I think I'm right in remembering that there was a 5+ times increase in clean energy generation in the time we were in office. And of course, #1 in America in energy efficiency for at least 4 years consecutively. I think that continues.
It does.
And then here's one other point I want to make, because I think this is the big challenge, kind of philosophically and politically going forward. I see this nationally, and that is we demonstrated that we could move briskly toward a carbon-free future without sacrificing economic growth, because the growth in the clean tech sector, the job growth in the clean tech sector was one of a couple that helped pull the Commonwealth out of recession sooner than most other states. And that's a point I think doesn't get emphasized often enough.
I think it's a really important point, and again, a point that we keep building on as the sector, as clean energy broadly, clean tech innovation is all maturing, and in many ways, it isn't just the clean energy sector. Clean energy is becoming the dominant platform for energy more broadly,
right.
And we tend to think of where we are these days as sort of looking at how we make the transition to a clean economy in the next decade or two. Right. And that's really part of the opportunity. And you were talking about the combination of the collaboration between the public sector and private sector. I think that's still absolutely fundamental to progress in this kind of a space that has so much innovation, so much policy market draw, but also the innovation and the practice of companies being able to figure out how to deploy these new technologies and how to integrate them and create value from them and value for their customers. How do you see, you've been on both the private and the public sector side, especially with your time at Bain over recent years. How do you see, what's the special sauce of making that kind of collaboration and partnership work?
Well, I think, there are all the obvious proof points and more powerful proof points about where the sensibility of Americans is moving, the consciousness of Americans is moving, especially, but not exclusively, among young people. But I think that I don't mean but, and I think, back to this point about proving the economics of moving toward a green economy, this is happening. This is where demand is. And so how is that demand met? And I think there are real economic opportunities in meeting that demand. I think it is critical that those proof points be elevated, that attention be called to them, because there are a whole lot of people in this country still who believe we can't go to a clean future without shutting lights off. That in other words, we can't sustain the power needs and meet the power needs of a growing economy at the same time we're trying to move to a carbon-free economy, and that's just not true. And we've seen that shown that in Massachusetts, and I think there are lots of other examples of this around the country and around the world. And that, I believe, has to be promoted. We have to tell that story. And a related point I think we have to address is the way in which folks feel, folks in the oil and gas industry and carbon-related industries feel threatened by a clean tech future. And you can understand why they would, although I would say, as a footnote, an important one, I think folks in the coal industry know that industry has been in decline for a long while.
Right.
But, we do innovation pretty well in America, historically. We don't do transition as well, which is to say we get around to the impact of the new thing later, if at all. And one of the things I've been fascinated with is this notion that maybe, you go and engage coal country, for example, and you say, look, as Ian used to say to me, or Phil, the coal age, so the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone. We just got a better idea. This is the better idea. Now, what's your role? What's your place in helping to bring that new world into being, and really being intentional about bringing along the industries and the people in those industries who will be impacted by this shift? I think there's a real leadership opportunity there and a role for the council and our allies going forward.
And I appreciate that, and I see that innovation taking place with our member companies all the time, which it's part of why we actually created this Clean Energy Back to Work Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
We have with COVID hitting and shutting down a lot of work in the field, we knew that our member companies were looking for ways to innovate, improve their business practices, find ways to get back to work, restart the economy, but do it in a way that was sensitive to customers, to being able to engage in the field, in deployment work, in building, in residence work.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been seeing, as we've seen in the 22 nominations that we got for awards for this challenge, we've seen some really insightful and innovative approaches, and that's part of the continuous improvement that goes on in this space.
That's great. That's great.
So actually, we are in this time. We've talked about the climate crisis. We are in this unbelievably unique time where there's really multiple crises going on, both in the world and in the United States, between COVID, a global recession, the climate crisis, racial injustice, and for that matter, threats on democracy.
Sure.
Sorry for the problem with the sound on the video there. Kate, if you can hear me, I assume, why don't we move forward, but we can come back to playing this segment once you're sure you have the sound working. Okay?
Yep, will do.
Okay. Thank you very much. And again, apologies, but we'll get that working. And it was wonderful to have the governor with us. So now I'm going to move us on to the next part, which will begin the awards part of our event. And to do that, I'd like to ask my two colleagues, Alistair Pym, the Vice President of Innovation and Partnerships, and Jeremy McDermott, our Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs, to turn on their videos and audio and microphones and join me up here to take the lead on introducing the awards this evening.
Everyone.
Good evening. Thanks, Peter. Nothing requires innovation like a crisis, so we'll pivot and move on. At this point, I'd like to welcome Brian McConnell, who's the Director of Retirement Strategies at NECEC Investment Managers, a key partner and ally of NECECs. And Brian's going to come introduce the finalists in our Customer Acquisition Award. And so without further ado, Brian McConnell, take it away.
Thanks, Jeremy. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. So COVID-19 has disrupted the way we live, work, and do business. With face-to-face contact impossible for most, companies have had to adapt the way they attract customers and close deals in a virtual business landscape. The Customer Acquisition Award will go to the company that developed innovative solutions for acquiring customers and executing agreements while balancing safety during the pandemic. Our finalists in this category are Energy Sage, which is an alum of NECEC's Clean Tech Open Northeast program and whose CEO, Vikram Agarwal, is currently Clean Tech Open's Northeast mentor. Energy Sage adapted its customers' acquisition practices during the pandemic by using its online solar shopping platform to connect solar customers with solar installers. NextAmp, a company that employed cutting-edge technology to engage with new and existing customers and expand its footprint by building new relationship among groups interested in growing renewable energy access. During the pandemic, the winner of this award adapted new practices to address customer acquisition challenges by participating in online municipal meetings, providing virtual site tours using live drone footage, and researching potential project sites using a variety of digital tools rather than conducting those activities in person. This company also held virtual information sessions to educate the public about community solar and partnered with local officials to cross-promote these events, thereby forming new relationships across the region that will last well beyond the pandemic. Congratulations to the Customer Acquisition Award winner, NextAmp. Joining us to accept their award is NextAmp's COO, Brad McLean.
Thank you, Brian. That's awesome. I guess I have to humbly accept this award on behalf of the 250 NextAmpers that are involved in doing the daily work that led to this. While parts of our business were already spread across offices in multiple states, we dropped from having about 150 people in our offices down to 10 at the onset of this outbreak. Then we had a rapid adaptation to a fully online work style, and I'm happy to report that that's led to our best year yet. We do employ a number of measures, including daily self-reporting on health status, a bi-weekly testing program paid for by the company, mask and sanitation requirements, and continuous review of the public health orders. And we use that in order to check across all the areas that we're operating. We also recognize the importance of acting in the best interests of the community. So while we've increased our office capacity back up to about 50, well below what our landlords and municipalities would permit, we're prepared to reduce them again should the current resurgence continue to grow. NextAmp hopes that all of you and your families are in and stay in good health. I wish you the best for the upcoming holiday season and hope to meet many of you face-to-face in 2021. Thank you again on behalf of the entire NextAmp team for this honor and recognition.
Okay, can you hear me? Hi everyone. Alistair back again. Congratulations, Brad and NextAmp, and to all those NextAmpers out there. Really inspiring story. So our next award is the Innovating Remote Work and Technology Solutions Award. So perhaps we could have the next slide. In our new virtual workplace, companies and organizations have had to pivot quickly to keep business moving and keep colleagues connected, motivated, and efficient. This award will go to an employer that pioneered a high-functioning remote work culture and reformed a practice or policy that will last way beyond the pandemic. Our finalists included CMC Energy Services, which developed a virtual solution to preserve relationships with customers and maintain its role as their single point of contact for clean energy solutions. Second was Daymark Energy Advisors, which doubled down on virtual video conferencing to maintain staff culture and connect with its clean energy customers. And the final finalist was Massachusetts Municipal Wholesale Electric Company, which is the joint action agency for municipal utilities in Massachusetts. And they shifted to offer free virtual home energy efficiency audits to customers during the pandemic. The winner of this award partnered with Eversource and Avangrid to develop a virtual energy assessment for residential customers to meet with energy technicians via video chat for an energy solutions assessment. The pilot program allowed the company and its partners to reach customers at a critical time, providing them with energy savings and protecting jobs and businesses that provide clean energy solutions in the region. The winner is CMC Energy Services. Congratulations. And joining us to accept their award is CMC Chief Executive Officer, Tina Bennett. You there, Tina?
I am, thank you. Wow. First, I want to thank NECEC for giving us all the opportunity to share the valuable innovations that so many companies have invested in over this pandemic. We are proud to be selected for this award. We are excited to be recognized, especially among so many outstanding candidates, including my former colleagues at Denmark. It's truly an honor. No one anticipated COVID-19's impact on the nation and the economy. And in March, as states expanded their stay-at-home orders and shut down all the on-site premise work that we were doing, CMC, like so many of us here tonight, were directed to stop servicing customers in their homes and businesses. We were concerned about protecting energy efficiency jobs at CMC and in the region. And we were also concerned about all the businesses and homeowners that would find themselves without energy efficiency solutions in the time when they need the most, quite frankly. So our Connecticut team, many of them who are with me tonight, responded very rapidly by helping to develop and pilot virtual pre-energy efficiency assessments, as well as leading all the Connecticut energy efficiency vendors in winning the right to fulfill customer self-installation energy efficiency packages so that homeowners and businesses could continue to implement energy efficiency practices. These efforts made customer experience more seamless and helped us to continue to provide energy efficiency and cost savings safely during the pandemic. And although we've now moved back into the work and done so in a safe way, we've learned that these measures will continue to add value well beyond COVID. It took the flexibility and an innovative spirit and the resiliency to expand our business to include virtual offerings in quite a rapid and quick turnaround. And it also required seamless collaboration, not only within CMC, but with our utility partners, Eversource that you heard from earlier today as one of them, program vendors, and our distributors to make this all happen and happen successfully. We are grateful that our partners and vendors had confidence in us to move our ideas forward. It really does take a village to make this kind of work happen and happen in the time frame that it did. I want to thank Joe Roy, CMC Senior Program Manager, who helped successfully lead this change along with his team, Andrea McCormick, Mike Campanelli, Ralph Valente, and the whole Connecticut team who went the extra mile to ensure the project's success. Our utility partners and their customers as well for their support. To date, we've reached more than 170 CMC customers in Connecticut alone, and even more across our footprint, including the virtual quality assurance and quality control inspections that we do in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And we see value, like I said before, in continuing to offer for virtual and remote services to reach and engage even more customers, both during COVID and well beyond. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the CMC team. Thank you, NEC, for giving us this opportunity to share. And we hope everyone stays well through this pandemic. Thank you.
Congratulations, Tina and CMC Energy Services. That was a really inspiring story. Just checking that I'm back on video, Kate. Yep, okay. So congratulations, CMC Energy Services, very inspiring. So now I would like to ask Steve Cowell, President of E for the Future, and who will present the next award, which is the On-Premises Project Construction and Installation Award. Steve, are you there? Steve Cowell? There you go. Great.
Hey,
Excellent. Over to you,
hey.
Steve.
Technology worked. All right, I'm very proud to be here to do this award. As everyone knows, the pandemic hit us in the region terribly, and it's not over yet. And when it hit, obviously the concerns around social distancing, public health, the shutdown of visits into people's homes had to ensure safety of both workers and consumers was a tremendous challenge. And the challenge had to be picked up with how do we respond to this to create a confident and safe procedure, what you wear, how you react, so we can get back into people's homes. And this award will be given to the company or organization that demonstrated the expertise, the innovation, the completeness, the developing of those procedures, and then the training and the working with the workforce to create and build the workforce knowledge, skills, and implementation to get back into the field and back into people's homes in a way that was safe. We have two finalists. One is Eversource, which most folks know. They convened an energy efficiency group of professionals, community organizations, implementation organizations and companies, health and safety experts, and to create a package of best practices for contractors and field staff to continue working safely through this pandemic. The other nominee is NECEC, which we've just heard from, which developed protocols to help enforce safety measures like social distancing, good hygiene, use of proper PPE, personal protective equipment, health and monitoring, and detailed reporting for its employees and contractors at all construction sites. So those two finalists. The winner of this award partnered with a full group of participants and key partners, colleagues, and organizations, including environmental health and engineering, the program administrators for the Energize Connecticut, Mass Save, NH Saves, and National Grid Rhode Island, Clear Result, and Rise Engineering, which were implementation contractors, and then ABCD and the Lean Network in Massachusetts, and the Building Performance Association to lead the working group to develop the procedures, the protocols, and the ways in which we can get back into the field and working with customers. And the guidelines covered topics like weatherization, exterior and unoccupied spaces, and introduced via informal webinars and online training courses that allowed contractors to earn certifications to implement those procedures. And the amazing thing, over 4,400 contractors passed the certification test almost within weeks of it being implemented in late August. So in addition to that, I'll just add one more thing, which is the amazing thing is that these protocols developed here went national. They were brought to DOE to be implemented nationally in the Weatherization Assistance Program for low income. And a whole program plan was implemented so that this was not just New England, it became, or Northeast, it became national. And the winner of this is Eversource. So thank you, Eversource, for doing that. And I'm to accept the award, I'm going to introduce my friend, Talak Subrahmanian, Vice President at Eversource. Talak, thank you. Great work. And we're going to get you online. There.
Thank you, Steve. Can you hear me? Are you guys able to hear me, presumably? First of all, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Peter, team at NECEC. This is really thrilled to accept this. And Steve, you pretty much took away everything I was going to say. So look, this is was a number of people, a huge cast of folks who are instrumental in making this happen. If I just give me a minute, I just want to thank some specific folks on our own team at Eversource. Frank Gundel really led it, Bob Lawrence, Noel Chambers, Chris Porter at National Grid was an essential partner, as was John Wells at ABCD, Vinny Graziano at Rise Engineering, and then we had Steve, your own team, you and your own team at E for the Future, as well as Environmental Health and Engineering. They are the experts. Really, part of our whole thing in this pandemic was, as soon as this thing hit, we had to put a stop to on-premise services, immediately pivoted to offering virtual training and services, some of which Tina just mentioned, and I want to congratulate Tina Bennett and CMC for that award. And then we had to figure out a way to get people back to doing the work. And that was what these protocols were essential to give customers and partners the confidence. And I was really glad to see how we came together. This is across 4 states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and parts of, and New Hampshire as well. So if we can bring this kind of a partnership together, I think we are very well set to really deal with many of the challenges we have ahead as we continue to address climate change. Huge part of the success here is because of the support we receive from our regulators in all these states. So really big thank you. Last but not the least, the businesses themselves, they recognize that putting all these protocols in place was not very cumbersome, to say the least, but they also recognize it was necessary to give customers the confidence and get us back to doing the work that we needed to do. Governor Patrick heard him before we got cut off about the last recession, that the clean energy industry in Massachusetts was a reason why we came out of the recession quite quickly. Hopefully that'll be the same this time around. We think this could be a real fill-up for getting us out of this current economic noise. So again, thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to NECEC. Steve, thank you for the award.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve, and congrats to Tilak and the Eversource team on a well-won award, well-deserved. At this point, in a normal year, we would turn the room back over to you and let you enjoy conversations amongst yourselves and reconnect with colleagues across the clean energy sector. In that spirit, what we've done is we've arranged for some breakout rooms in order to have a little bit of virtual networking, which is the par for the course at this moment in time. So before we go into the breakout rooms, I'd like to welcome everybody to turn their videos on and wave their congratulations to the winners so far, and then follow the prompts to join your breakout room. And we'll come back in 15 minutes to announce the follow-up, the rest of our awardees, and hopefully resume the conversation with Governor Patrick. Thank you, and we'll see you in the breakout rooms.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back from the breakouts. I hope you all had fun meeting a few new people, or maybe it's just some of your colleagues, but so it was a great experience there. I think a few of you still got your videos on. I think we're hoping that you turn them all off again now as we go to the next session. So first of all, I just want to congratulate all the winners so far. We've got a few more. We've got some more exciting awards to announce tonight. But first, we're going to shift gears again for a special discussion of back to work innovations from a totally different type of business. Then followed by a musical interlude. So we cross our fingers and hope the video works on that one too. So with us tonight is Jennifer Ritvo-Hughes, Executive Director of Boston Baroque, one of the oldest and finest period instrument orchestras in the nation. Jennifer will join NECEC President Peter Rothstein for a conversation exploring how the orchestra undertook its own back to work innovations to continue its performance season virtually. So Peter and Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you, Alistair. I hope you can hear me, and hopefully my video is showing up, and there's Jennifer as well.
Hello.
Welcome. Great to have both of us here, and we are a little out of sequence in our evening here, our afternoon, I should say. But I very much appreciate, first of all, just before we get into this, Jennifer, I want to thank everybody for their understanding and forbearing as we've had some technical glitches, but I am sure all the breakouts had wonderful conversations. We will find a way to get back to the video, the last piece of the video with Governor Patrick.
And we will also, if there's any problem with that, we will make sure that we are sending out the link so people can watch it afterwards, because we do have that all in the can. But now, this is an opportunity, I think, for a different conversation, not about clean energy back to work, but about a different kind of organization getting back to work in these days. Jennifer Hughes is the executive director of Boston Baroque, a wonderful Baroque period instrument, orchestra and chorus.
Yes.
It's a wonderful organization. Full disclosure, my wife is part of the team there. And it's an organization that's been leading in live performance. And of course, this has many things that have changed in the COVID era for Boston Baroque. Maybe you could just take a quick minute, Jennifer, and tell us a little bit about what's been different about how you do performances and rehearsals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to have a chance to chat with you and to share a little bit about this. You know, we really had to pivot completely. When COVID hit in March, we were 3 weeks away from one of our largest performances of the season, about 7 weeks away from an opera that was bringing in singers from all over the world. And we had to really, you know, in that moment, shut down, because sometimes the show must not go on. And that's the most disciplined and safest and most ethical thing to keep our artists safe and our audiences safe. And then we took a second and just rebuilt. So this year we have a virtual season. We're actually releasing more than ever before. We started very quickly started a channel on Amazon Prime, renegotiated some deals with our artists and with our union, and launched a global channel that's being seen by thousands of people all over the world. So we're leaning into those opportunities.
That's fabulous. That sounds like pivoting and innovating is, as we've been talking about with the Clean Energy Back to Work challenges. It's similar things. I mean, a lot of our clean energy companies have had to deal with new ways of interacting with their customers, with their business partners. I mean, in your case, it's the audience,
Yes.
as well as the musicians,
Mm-hmm.
and being aware of trying to do this in an environmentally responsible and economically responsible way. What kind of innovations have you had to draw upon to be able to do? Set up these channels, but also bring your musicians back to a forum where they can play together?
Yes. So what we did for this season, as you said, having that really important relationship with your audience and that authentic relationship with your clients, your buyers is so important. So we made the decision to have a pop-up season this year. We felt that if I had the crystal ball that could say when we can have, large-scale live performances, I'd be a billionaire. But I don't. So we made that decision to be able to, again, pivot within our season, that we'll perform, and we'll perform robustly when it's safe. And when it's not, we'll hang tight and rely on our archival releases, of which we're very lucky to have very many to be able to release. So we started in late September. We did our first live stream of the season, bringing artists together on stage at GBH. And we used what I call the Swiss cheese approach to pandemically responsible performance, which is really aligning rapid testing. We did rapid testing of our players, very careful social distancing. We reduced the number of musicians we bring on stage. We typically have a large orchestra. We reduced to one on a part, as you'll see when you get to see a little bit of the performance. And we were in a really wonderful, well-ventilated space. It was a different performance, and I think there's opportunities in there. You can speak directly to your audiences. People were chatting on hundreds of chats going back and forth during the performance, people being able to communicate with each other in the hall, which is maybe what people want to do all the time anyway. Want to talk to a friend about what's so exciting, what they're seeing on stage. That's an opportunity of performing in this way.
And reaching out to audiences beyond the local area.
Yeah, we had people watching in 4 countries when we were live streaming back in September, and when we stream again in December, I expect the same.
Well, congratulations on the pop-up season so far, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of innovation going forward. So you mentioned that this performance that you did, that Boston Baroque did in September.
Yes.
And I'm very excited that we're going to be able to play a small excerpt from, I think, the last movement of this performance. Can you take a minute and tell us a little bit about what we're going to be hearing?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for this, really our premise with it was that we didn't want people to see this and miss the concert hall. We wanted people to see this and for it to be something really different, that we viewed this as creating music for the screen, for television. So we leaned into that. It's presented in a dramatic way. It's lit beautifully. The cameras can get much closer to the orchestra members than you typically would in a traditional concert. And this is Vivaldi's Four Seasons, which was a piece that he wrote for string orchestra, actually at a girls' school. And it is just one of those timeless classic pieces of music that I think never gets old. It's one on a part, which is actually an authentic way to perform it. And it's on period instruments, which are instruments that are replicas of the instruments that were actually authentic to the time.
That's great. So thank you, Jennifer.
My pleasure.
Congratulations again. This is the last movement of the winter segment of the Vivaldi Four Seasons.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Enjoy.
much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer and Peter, for what was an amazing conversation, and to the Boston Baroque for a fantastic performance. It's even more amazing when you can't hear the sound. Just kidding. Next up, my former colleague and current friend, Steve Pike, who's the CEO of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, is going to join us to present the Greenhouse Gas Reduction and Public Health Mitigation Award. And truth be told, he's also the inspiration for my new haircut. So with all of that, I'd like to turn it over to Steve to roll out the next award.
Terrific. Thanks, Jeremy. Glad I can inspire somebody to do something in this day and age. But thanks to you, Peter, and Dan Goldman for having me here this evening. Really appreciate it, and thanks to everybody for turning out. The COVID-19 pandemic really requires us to work collectively to combat an existential threat. And I think it's fair to say that the same is needed to meet the climate challenge. This award that I'm presenting will go to the company that piloted work that has led to a significant reduction in greenhouse gases while using technology or services or a combination of the two that simultaneously address public health and virus transmission concerns today and in the future. So the two finalists are first Symetrics, which work closely with its clients to ensure safe and energy efficient building operations throughout the pandemic, and augmented its building analytics system in response to the latest guidelines and research. The second finalist is MBU, which has been working with property management companies to deploy the company's cloud-based building-wide network systems. MBU systems collect data from connected devices placed throughout a building to monitor equipment and ensure energy efficiency goals are met. The winner of this award partnered with Shochet Companies, Rethinking Power Management, House Corporation, Victor Francis Mechanical, and Vencom Communications to implement a whole building intelligence system that improves energy efficiency, creates a healthy and comfortable environment for tenants, and protects buildings and building equipment from damage. The company's system helped reduce greenhouse gas emissions and energy use on one project undertaken during the pandemic by an estimated 20%. Congratulations to our Greenhouse Gas Reduction and Public Health Mitigation Award winner, MBU. Robert Cooper, President and CEO, is here to accept the award.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you very, very much to NECEC for putting on this event and the Back to Work Challenge and the webinar series. That's been a real help to the industry at this time. And I also wanted to thank obviously our entire team on whose behalf I accept this award. But really, a lot of the thanks here goes to our customers. Our customers run multifamily properties, quite a large percentage of which are senior housing properties, which have been, in many cases, not at our customers, but in other cases have been really, the epicenter of COVID. So I think, we're just very, very respectful of everything our customers have done just to keep their operations going, keep their folks safe. But what we're also very thankful for is that they kept the eye on the ball about the projects they had going on that were very focused on saving energy. And what we realized when we were working with these customers and looking at the development of COVID is a lot of the same technologies that we put into our buildings, into our customers' buildings, to save energy and keep people comfortable, can also help keep them safer. We've always been able to measure humidity in our customers' buildings, and humidity is low humidity, I should say, extreme low humidity is one of the major multipliers on viral transmission rates. So we realized that by working with our customers, continuing to do these installations, we were going to help save energy as well as keep customers safe. I'd also like to thank all of the partners that we've been working with, that you listed, but also partners we work with on other projects as well.
And one of the things that's very gratifying is that by the efforts of everybody involved, really, our projects have resulted in other companies in the area being able to maintain their staff. Everybody from our contract manufacturing firm in Southeastern to the mechanical engineers and so forth that are installing our products. So yes, thank you very, very much, and looking forward to continuing to roll this out through the pandemic and beyond. Thank you very much.
So congratulations, Robert, and the whole NU team. That's really great. It's especially great to see a Clean Tech Open alumni company coming through and winning an award. So really good to see you continuing the journey. So now I'd like to introduce Roger Cranenberg from Eversource, who will present the Community Engagement During the Pandemic Crisis Award. So Roger, over to you.
Thanks, Alistair. So staying connected in meaningful ways is even more important than ever, whether keeping close to customers, suppliers, colleagues, engaging with diverse communities, and issues central to equitable transition to a clean economy. Despite these challenges of remote work and stay-at-home orders, companies are leading by keeping lines of communications open in their communities. This award will go to a company that has gone above and beyond the call of duty to demonstrate leadership in sustaining relationships within its community during this challenging time. And the finalists are Power Options, which enabled an extensive outreach to its nonprofit member companies to help connect them with critical suppliers, resources needed to protect health and safety throughout the pandemic. Save Solar, which established a socially distant informational booth in one community to educate the public about community solar and engage with potential customers in a safe, personal way. UMass Lowell, which partnered with the City of Lowell, Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, Leading by Example program, National Grid, Greentown Labs, and Mill City Grows to enhance clean energy deployment by asking student-led teams to develop plans to reduce the university's CO2 emissions. Now for the winner. After learning that some of its members lacked access to proper PPE, the winner of this award leveraged its own bulk purchasing power to procure and donate hand sanitizer and masks to member companies, including senior living and childcare facilities. This company's COVID action team delivered more than 20,000 masks and nearly 80 gallons of hand sanitizers across 3 states. The company also forged new relationships with other organizations working to provide supplies in response to the COVID-19 crisis, including nonprofits that sourced the masks and a local winery that produced hand sanitizer. Congratulations to the winner of the Community Engagement During the Pandemic Award, Power Options. Joining us to accept this award is Power Options President and CEO, Heather Tackle. Heather?
Wow, Roger, thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you, NECC. Yes, thank you. Wow, and you told the story for us. So we can't thank you guys enough for going through the effort in this time to identify and recognize extraordinary efforts that we're all going through in these difficult times. So on behalf of the Power Options team, we're immensely grateful. Absolutely to NECC for recognizing these teams' efforts and going through this and what it takes to put on a fantastic presentation tonight, as well as the Daymark team as our close partners who identified our efforts there, as we were a little bit shy to announce what we've done for our members because we definitely, of course, have not gone through the worst of it like many of our members have. You know, months ago, which feel like light years ago in COVID time, I think you guys might sympathize with. We came up with this idea and we definitely did not anticipate receiving an award for doing so, because what we were doing is what everyone does in a time of crisis, right? You're not seeking recognition, you're just responding to a real need. And at Power Options, for those that don't know us as a nonprofit, we're mission driven. That is our mission, is to serve our members' needs of all the nonprofits and government entities across Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island that we serve. If you haven't had the chance to meet the other members of the Power Options team, you should know that they're an incredibly compassionate, mission-driven group of individuals. So this was just a no-brainer for them as the opportunity came up. They're united in that mission that they'll stop at nothing to serve our members. And this project was the shining example of that, because we went beyond energy and we went to masks and sanitizers, and locally sourced sanitizer at that. It happened because during our outreach, as we were checking in this compassionate team that I get the pleasure to work with, we saw a trend that they were in need, that they couldn't procure. You know, it was only the largest hospitals that could get the mask and sanitizer in those early days of COVID, you might remember. But members like the smaller nonprofits, senior living facilities, YMCAs, that we work with were in desperate need, and we put our brains together to figure out how we could do that. And so we leveraged our bulk purchasing power, we leveraged our manpower, and went out and procured masks and sanitizer on their behalf. And it was really a rewarding experience in serving those members. Also, in addition, we were able to put together a fund and give back to those communities and give back donations from $500 to $1,500 out to those members that were in most in need. And as I'm sure you all would not be surprised to know, that nonprofits and others, of course, in this economic times are hurting. This was really a whole team effort for our team at Power Options. This was just them doing our mission and doing our day job. Of course, you wouldn't be surprised. I want to give special thanks to two of our members, Kristen Patnode and Walt Gray, who were really instrumental in the innovation that this encompassed, as well as the manpower. But it was definitely a whole team effort. But lastly, I want to recognize and make sure, I mean, we all know that the real heroes were the ones that we were serving. Hundreds of thousands of extraordinary efforts during the pandemic that we've all heard the stories of, and they are the ones that deserve the recognition out there on the front lines, and many of which are our members in the senior living, as I mentioned, as well as other low-income residents and our housing authorities and the nonprofits and museums, and all of those organizations are hurting, but also, as we heard from Boston Baroque, doing some extraordinary efforts during this time. I'm proud to be a new member of the Power Options team and witness this team in their mission-driven compassion culture go out and serve those vulnerable members. And as you heard, Power Options isn't, of course, the only one out there. UMass Lowell, Save Solar are doing extraordinary efforts, as well as everyone tonight. And we're just a part of that, which is in a time of crisis, we're doing what the mission called for. So we extend our appreciation to NECEC, Denmark, but most importantly, our members who dedicate this award to them for their truly heroic work on the front lines. This was just us doing our job. Thank you, guys.
Congratulations and thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Heather. Really appreciate it, and great work. Congratulations to the Power Options team. And now I'd like to move us actually backwards a little bit. We are going to make an attempt, which I'm sure will be successful, to go back to where we had left off on the conversation with Governor Deval Patrick, and be able to, my fingers and everything are crossed. We want to listen to the rest of the conversation. Here it goes. So actually, we are in this time. We've talked about the climate crisis. We are in this unbelievably unique time where there's really multiple crises going on, both in the world and in the United States, between COVID, a global recession, the climate crisis, racial injustice, and for that matter, threats on democracy.
Sure.
I would love to have just some of your high-level thoughts about this time and what it might mean for us.
And for us, you mean us, the members
Broadly,
of the council, or us as
no, this is societal.
humankind.
Humankind, all of us as citizens.
So the meeting the climate crisis is made more difficult by the shadow cast on science as a key reference point, and not just a suggestion, but really, how you bound and ground solutions. I think that changes with the incoming administration, thank goodness. But I don't think it changes by just flipping a switch, so to speak. I do think that there has to be a sustained demonstration of respect for scientific consensus around climate change, and that has to be supported by showing people what the difference is. I mean, I remember going out to Iowa during my 15-minute long presidential campaign and visiting a city that I think it was on the Iowa River. I should have checked this before I recorded anything, but where the river had crested at 100-year levels 3 times in the last decade, maybe.
Right.
And it's different. Ask most farmers, by the way, just in this last growing season, around just about anywhere in the Midwest. And they will tell you that they have experienced disaster after disaster after disaster during the growing season. And they can see what setback that's going to be in the coming growing seasons, because it's hard to plan, and because in some cases they've lost their topsoil or the infrastructure that supported their agriculture. So I think there is the climate crisis is just that. It has to be dealt with that way. But it also gives us the opportunity, alongside these other crises, to get out of our silos. And that's really where I was going here. So much policy is made in discrete silos when people actually live their lives at the intersection of all of that. They don't think about how exciting it is to have the growth in clean tech jobs, independently of whether there's an opportunity for me as a Black man or her as a Black woman to have a chance at those jobs. I mean, it's a great way to think about how we address a bunch of different challenges. So much of the climate impact has been and will be on communities of color. And so how do we deal with the issues of environmental and climate justice as we are developing solutions, so that the benefit isn't all for,
right,
folks in suburbs. And then I think, you mentioned the question of democracy. If folks think we have a refugee crisis today, you wait and see what we're facing if we don't reverse the course we're on. It will make this, what we're dealing with today around the world, seem like a walk in the park. And the pressure that places on democratic institutions and democratic governments is, to say nothing of economies in different parts of the world, is just no joke. And so it seems to me there are ways in which these crises all intersect, and the solutions need to be thought of in comprehensive ways. And we should stop being quite so uneasy with big ideas, big solutions. It doesn't mean that we have to implement it all at once, but setting big and broad goals and then building toward those goals and bringing in other voices and perspectives and experiences in building toward those goals, I think is the way, is first of all, what the times demand and the way to actually deliver success.
Well, Governor Patrick, thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your thoughts and insights, and both some of the recollections, but but your guidance here as we look forward, because this next decade, next couple of decades are going to be instrumental for both clean energy, but the broader society. And thank you for the linkages, yes, on environmental justice. Those sorts of themes are a part of what we're finding all of us in the clean energy space have to be aware of and pay attention to, and be part of the stakeholder and alliance relationships that we are a part of for clean energy to be part of the way the economy, the overall society works.
Keep that going, Peter, because the fact is that the challenges that face us, and you've named many of the most significant, are too big for any one sector to solve on its own. And the collaboration among and between those sectors, government, private industry, advocates, not-for-profit groups, that's how we get lasting and meaningful change. So keep it going.
We will, and you too. Thanks for helping us today.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, Governor Patrick. That was a very important perspective, and I think the overall message is to think big and act together. Before we close the evening, we have one more award to give, and that is something where we need your help. We are giving out what we're calling the People's Choice Award. And this award will give the members and sponsors in attendance tonight a chance to vote for your favorite Back to Work Award Challenge winner from this evening. To remind you, the awardees tonight are for customer acquisition, NECEC; for innovating remote work and technology solutions, CMC Energy Services; for on-premises project construction installation, Eversource; for greenhouse gas reduction and public health mitigation, MBU; and for community engagement during the pandemic crisis, Power Options. You're seeing a poll come up, and please take a minute to vote for your choice, and we will announce the winner shortly. Now's a good moment to turn on your cameras and applaud all of our winners tonight as you vote. We'll close the poll in just a minute. All right, folks, the votes are in, and this year's People's Choice Award winner is Power Options. Congrats to all of our finalists, and congrats to all of our award winners this evening. Before we adjourn, I'd like to turn it back over to Peter to close out tonight's program with a few closing thoughts. Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I'll add my congratulations to the award winners and all of the finalists. We're proud of your work that's been so fundamental to helping to continue to grow the Northeast clean energy economy in these difficult times. And we look forward to continuing to partner with all of you in the year ahead. We are going to be closing the program here in just a moment, the formal part of the program, but we still have time to go back to networking. So that'll be coming up in just a moment. I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors who helped to make this event and the 5-month challenge initiative possible, and to our members for working closely with us throughout the year on everything we do. Thank you to Governor Deval Patrick, whose keynote conversation highlighted many critical themes in our evolving transition to a clean energy economy and shared really invaluable insights as we progress through multiple global crises and look ahead to a critical decade of action in the 2020s. Thank you to Jennifer Hughes for joining us, and to the whole Boston Baroque organization and the fantastic performance that we heard a snippet of. It was wonderful. Thank you to our team, Alistair, Jeremy, our new senior communications manager, Maggie Quackenbush, for all of their help running the show tonight, to the entire NECEC team for all the hard work they're doing this year, and also the events team at Fields Associates for pulling the strings behind the scene, including getting the video working again, and supporting this virtual gathering. As this formal part of the event comes to a close, we will make sure all the cameras will be turning back on and your audio will be coming back on. So stick on for a bit more virtual networking. We're going to create some breakout groups with 6 randomized attendees from tonight's event. And if you want to jump back and try and join a different room, you can do that as well anytime. We'll send you to another networking group when you come back to the main Zoom room. Thank you all for being part of advancing the clean energy industry. Have a wonderful evening. Turn on your microphones and enjoy the networking.